morning, everyone. I just watched a video on YouTube. I was searching around. I always look through my subscriptions or my homepage or whatever it's called. And there was a video about a pastor that was, a Christian pastor that was just arrested. And it appears that he is confronting people at a mosque, Muslims at an Islamic mosque, and asking questions about the age of a wife of Muhammad, and accusing Muhammad of being a pedophile, and then making a very pronounced stand and an argument from a position that he considers to be absolutely certain. He knows that what he is saying is right. I think one of the most difficult things for me about interacting with people on an intellectual level, academically or debating these sorts of things, is this idea out there that what I know is absolutely correct, and leaving no room at all for the validity of a differing opinion, a differing conclusion. And of course, I'm not against the idea of knowing something for practical certainty, things like gravity or evolution, those sorts of things. One of the things that has become and remains abundantly clear to me is that it is so difficult to demonstrate something with anything that might be considered certainty. And so, I was translating through a Sumerian text yesterday morning, and I was just thinking to myself, we know Sumerian relatively well, and yet there still remains significant disagreement, but disagreement in many aspects of the language. For example, I was reading through lines from Edmure Carr and the Lord of Arata, and in the opening section it's broken, but there's debate about how to translate a particular phrase or particular. At any rate, the point is that even something that I have an expertise in, there's no way that I would stand and say this is what this means. End of story. Because as you go through academic training like this, or whatever, you realize that, again, I've said this before, but the more that you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And what I mean by that is, right now, if you don't realize the complexity of a particular topic, or all the aspects, nuances of a particular topic. For example, the Bible. Let's just take the Bible. If you don't realize that the Bible was written in Greek and Hebrew, right? And you don't realize that the transmission of Greek and Hebrew was a complicated process, and then interpreting the text and even trying to ascertain what the original reading would have been is a very complicated and debated process. And that defining lexical items and syntax and aspects of grammar from a dead language is not always so straightforward. And then once you get to what you consider to be a good reading that represents what was originally put down, and you agree with other scholars, other people that are experts in the field, about the meaning of a lexeme, the meaning of a word, and then you agree on how that word functions in its syntactical unit. Now, all of these things are very difficult to come to, but even once you get there, language is very, very difficult. And so then expecting that you could take a firm stance, even assuming all of those things to be solved and definitive, being able to then stand on something as complex as theology and doctrines of the biblical text, and to say no, even though people have debated these things for thousands of years, literally thousands of years, I have the right answer, and I believe it and understand it, not believe, but I understand it to be so, and to be so, understand it to be demonstrably so, that I'm willing to go to a mosque, another religious center, and yell and really call them out. I mean, he literally says this is a false religion, and it's such a claim, because it requires the knowledge of all, in my opinion, of significant portions, significant aspects of both religions, to not only know what they say, but what they don't say, and to determine the validity of both, to know that yours is valid beyond reasonable doubt, or demonstrably so, and that the other religion is, I mean, it's extraordinarily difficult to do, if even possible. I mean, again, we had this discussion earlier. I think ultimately these things come back to, that they ultimately have to come back to faith. It strikes me that people that make claims that they know the truth and that they understand the complexities that people have debated for thousands of years are often people that actually don't have formal training in that topic. And the people that realize is the wrong word here, as it's somewhat biased. People that would assert that issues are very complex and that it's difficult to know with certainty the truth value or the validity of things that ultimately require faith. The people that understand and won't assert that they know things to be true, and that they know beyond a shadow of a doubt that their position is correct and that there's no argument with their position, are people that have been formally trained in these fields. And it's just, I always note that when I listen to people, and so it always comes up in my mind, whether I say it or not, or ask the question or not. But in my mind, I always think to myself, when I hear someone speaking, when I hear someone making an argument, particularly a bold argument, a definitive argument, I always find myself asking, either to myself or out loud, what training do you have in this? And the reason that I ask that, it clues me in. Generally speaking, people that make bold claims like that, in my experience, are people that are untrained in the particular topic about which they're speaking, or they are very highly trained, but they're only speaking toward a narrow aspect of the field. So I suppose that's my opinion on this. This pastor, Logan Robertson, in Australia, I think is where he was. I guess that's my final conclusion or my final thoughts. If you hear someone making bold assertions, and their conclusions in their mind leave no room for discussion or debate, and no real room, no practical room, in my experience, be very critical of someone who makes such a claim or such claims. And oftentimes, or because oftentimes, they're not actually trained in that field and they don't understand the complexities and the intricacies and the actual debated aspects and the misunderstood or unclear aspects of the particular thing about which they're making such clear assertions. Okay. So until next time, please subscribe and help us bring an end to poor scholarship. Thank you.